Box office headlines declared the biggest Memorial Weekend of all time, that Lilo and Stitch shattered all Memorial records, that Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning posted a franchise best opening. But that narrative was almost entirely false. Welcome to the Box Office Revival. I'm Brandon Gray, the creator of Box Office Mojo, and hence the creator of most of these all-time charts you see being quoted all the time. And before the summer continues any further, I have to correct the record. First off, yes, Memorial Weekend 2025 was the highest grossing Memorial Weekend since 2013. But, contrary to the shill media, it was not the biggest ever. Without even adjusting for ticket price inflation, the overall gross did not exceed 2013, though it was a close call. Let me show you. Overall, Memorial 2025 came in at around $330 million, but that's including preview grosses made prior to the actual weekend. So you have to remove those. $14.5 million from Lilo and Stitch and $8.3 million from Mission Impossible, which knocks it down to around $307 million. 2013 also had some preview grosses from Fast and Furious 6, but even when that's corrected, 2013 is still higher than 2025 by a narrow margin. However, if we adjust for ticket price inflation, which is a form of estimating attendance, we see that it wasn't even close. Memorial 2013 did the equivalent of at least $428 million versus around $307 million in 2025. And 2013 itself wasn't even the biggest. That title goes to 2004 when Shrek 2 was exploding and The Day After Tomorrow was detonating, leading to an adjusted Memorial Weekend of over $450 million. Now, the 2025 hyperbole was understandable from the perspective of an industry on the ropes. I get that we want to celebrate a win, especially when we've had so few in recent years, but let's not lean so heavily into the cheerleading that we evade reality. I think the fact that we had the highest grossing Memorial Day weekend since 2013 was sufficient enough news to celebrate, even if it doesn't make for the sexiest or most clickbaity of headlines. Memorial 2025 was a rare win in this post-pandemic, post-streaming war, post-strike world, beating the same weekend in 2019 when Aladdin opened, even after adjusting for ticket price inflation. 2025 business was roughly 2.5 times higher than 2024, which was the worst Memorial Weekend ever outside of the pandemic. 2024 had the right idea, though, with the counter-programming of Garfield and Furiosa. It's just that those movies had severely limited appeal. This year, Hollywood counter-programmed to success with the pairing of Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Yes, two big movies can thrive on the same weekend and not cannibalize each other, particularly when they have complementary audiences. Hell, Tom Cruise and Stitch already proved that the first time they faced off back in the summer of 2002. But back to the debunking. Here are the highest grossing 4-day Memorial Day opening weekends of all time. Yes, it is true that Lilo and Stitch had the top grossing Memorial debut ever in terms of raw dollars, surpassing Top Gun Maverick, as you see here. But in this era of highly inflated ticket prices, it's not that hard to break money-oriented records at the box office. Using a quite conservative current average ticket price estimate of around $11.30 shows that Lilo and Stitch was, at best, the 5th biggest Memorial Day ever, behind Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, The Lost World: Jurassic Park, X-Men: The Last Stand, and Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And amongst Disney's live-action remakes, Lilo and Stitch ranked 3rd behind The Lion King 2019 and Beauty and the Beast 2017. This is for the 3-day Friday to Sunday weekends. Adjusted for ticket price inflation, drops Stitch to 4th, essentially tied with The Jungle Book 2016. And I say that not just because of the conservative ticket price I'm using, but because adjusting is not precise, since we don't have the actual attendance. These are all essentially estimates. By the way, want to know where Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning landed on the all-time Memorial Weekend list? Unadjusted, you have to go further down the chart. Further, until you get to number 19. That's right. Even unadjusted, MI2 edges out MI8. So much for the claim that The Final Reckoning had the best debut of the franchise. Now, these are Friday to Monday openings, so to be fair, that claim was for the weekend proper, aka Friday to Sunday. But to make that claim, preview grosses of $8.3 million made prior to the weekend were added to say MI8 made $64 million in its opening weekend, which would be the highest ever unadjusted for Mission Impossible, if it were true. But as I've been explaining this obvious point for ages now, Thursday or any day prior to the weekend in question is not the weekend in question. For any chart to be accurate, to have integrity, to be objective, it has to stay within the defined parameters. For a weekend chart, that's the box office from Friday to Sunday on the dates in question. In this case, May 23rd to May 25th, 2025. Down the road, I'll have to make a video explaining this further. As obvious as it is, yet the industry and the media wants to approach the box office subjectively, and I've yet to hear a valid reason why. If anyone wants to debate this topic, please share your thoughts in the comments. That being said, the fact is that Mission Impossible's true first weekend champ is MI2 from the year 2000. And that movie, by the way, like the first Mission in 1996, opened on a Wednesday. But these numbers aren't including those previous days or any previews because I keep it consistent and apples to apples. I only point that out to show that even though MI2 burnt off some demand before the weekend, it's still the biggest debut of the franchise, even without adjusting for ticket price inflation. Now, when we adjust for ticket price inflation, Final Reckoning drops to number 7, even behind Dead Reckoning Part 1. Ghost Protocol brings up the rear only because it started as a limited release and it went nationwide on Christmas weekend. As a side note, Ghost Protocol was not just the pivot point of the franchise, but the movie that brought it back to life after the disappointment of Mission Impossible 3 and the tepid audience response to 2. It's funny, in the Hollywood Reporter's story on May 25th, there was a line that stuck out as particularly ignorant. MI movies have never been big openers. The first 2 Mission Impossibles would beg to differ. That first mission even shattered the Memorial Weekend record back in 1996. And just look at 1 and 2's numbers adjusted for ticket price inflation. Each are more than double what Final Reckoning did, even after their Wednesday to Thursday burn-offs. By the way, that Hollywood Reporter article made at least one other blunder. They said Dead Reckoning Part 1 had a $54.7 million 5-day bow. Wrong. 54.7 was the 3-day weekend. Its 5-day tally was actually 78.5 million. And that error has yet to be corrected on their website. Again, by debunking the shill media, the intention here is not to disparage the box office performances of Lilo and Stitch or Mission Impossible. Stitch is an unqualified smash, while Final Reckoning has fared about as well as could be reasonably expected given the state of that franchise. But it's unfortunate that so many just take headlines and media reports at face value. They shrug and say, oh, well, I guess that's how the industry does it. And then they go on to spread these false narratives further, even in their own YouTube videos. I mean, it takes some time and effort to make a YouTube video, so why waste it being yet another shill or sucker for false narratives? Anyway, this was my belated attempt to set the record straight. And this is a wrap on this video. If you're looking for more of that objective perspective on the movies in the box office from the OG of box office analysis, please like this video if you liked it, share it, comment on it, you know the drill. Subscribe to the Box Office Revival. Thank you for watching.